As long as there have been wars, there have been war profiteers, but never quite like this. Tonight, new evidence that bettors, including a U.S. soldier, may have profited by using inside information to wager on when and how military operations will unfold. A soldier using classified intelligence to trade. Unprecedented.
There is nothing to compare that to. This is a new kind of insider trading.
On ancient roads in London, a very modern battle is brewing.
If we do a left here, the Goldsmith's Hall.
Black cabs will soon be competing with artificial intelligence-powered autonomous taxis. But as we found out, London's cabbies aren't about to hand over their keys.
Your knowledge is better than what a Google map will tell you to go.
Oh, don't make me laugh. Seriously, you know. It's like comparing a hot dog vendor to Gordon Ramsay.
I feel a real responsibility to try and get as much on screen for the audience as possible.
Action!
Christopher Nolan is one of the great directors of our time. Oppenheimer, Dunkirk, Interstellar, and next, The Odyssey.
I mean, it was the hardest movie I've ever done, by far. I mean, not even close.
I'm Leslie Stahl.
I'm Scott Pelley.
I'm Anderson Cooper.
I'm Sharon Alfonsi.
I'm John Wertheim.
I'm Cecilia Vega.
I'm Bill Whitaker. Those stories, and in our last minute, Nate Bargatze with something funny about America. Tonight on 60 Minutes.
The war with Iran and the U.S. military operation to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro have carried the usual hallmarks of conflict: soldiers, strategy, casualties, cost. But they've also been accompanied by a new feature: betting on war. This year alone, more than $1 billion has been staked online on military decisions and outcomes. As if they were wagering on football games or Oscar winners, bettors all over the globe have taken positions, some suspiciously timed and with information seemingly too specific for a civilian outsider, on when and how an attack might happen, even the fate of world leaders. It's created a whole new category of insider trading. As long as there have been wars, there have been war profiteers, but never quite like this. Cloaked in night, shrouded in secrecy, U.S. Special Operations Forces captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro on January 3rd. He was taken to the U.S. to face drug trafficking and narco-terrorism charges.
We need to bring him to the other courthouse. Do not block his way, please.
As it turned out, the president of Venezuela wasn't the only figure in the operation who would find himself confronting federal charges. U.S. Army soldier Gannon Ken Van Dyke, who was involved in the planning and execution of the Venezuela mission, was charged last month with using classified intelligence to place bets based on when the surprise raid would unfold.
If the allegations are true, this is one of the worst betrayals of trust in this area that I can remember and possibly ever. Americans should feel confident the most important little agency they've probably never heard of is on the job.
Now a private lawyer in Washington, Rob Schwartz, until last year, worked for the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, a federal agency policing fraud and insider trading. A soldier using classified intelligence to trade. Unprecedented.
Classified intelligence that he knew about because he helped plan and to execute the mission. There is nothing to compare that to.
The Justice Department alleges Van Dyke made a series of wagers totaling roughly $34,000. Including a half dozen the day before the raid. He ended up netting more than $400,000. According to the indictment, Van Dyke immediately withdrew his profit, then tried to delete his betting account on Polymarket, the world's biggest online prediction market. The 38-year-old Army Master Sergeant has pleaded not guilty. Polymarket says it cooperated with law enforcement.
If you are a corporate executive and you're privy to non-public business information, you go trade on that, that's insider trading. Everybody knows that. But the same thing exists in prediction markets where this soldier is alleged to have traded.
You're saying different context from what we usually think. Two guys at the golf course are winking and whispering and tipping each other off, but this is still meeting the definition of insider trading?
Exactly right. This is a new kind of insider trading.
Spiking in popularity, prediction markets, including Polymarket, offer wagers on the likelihood of future events. Will the Dodgers win the World Series? Will Jesus return in 2026? For that matter, in a 60 Minutes interview, would President Trump say the word trillion more than 10 times? Turned out that one didn't pay off. But lately, another kind of wager has found popularity. What will happen in military conflicts? Dates of attack? Will an airspace close? Will enriched uranium change hands? You can bet on it. You can also bet on this. Insiders, people holding non-public information, will be laying down their money too. In the U.S., it's prohibited to make military bets on platforms like Polymarket, though it's easy to find digital workarounds, as Gannon Ken Van Dyke allegedly did. Here's what's more astounding than the existence of military bets: how often they pay off.
It's alarming to see a culture around betting on war.
Michelle Kendler-Kretsch and her team at the Anti-Corruption Data Collective examined Polymarket bets on military outcomes. She looked specifically at long-shot wagers, bets with less than 35% odds. Despite being underdogs, they won more than they lost, a telltale sign, she says, of, quote, systemic insider trading. Give me the apples-to-apples comparison. This military bets versus, say, sports wagering.
So military bets are 52% success rate. Sports, 7%.
Wildly disproportionate to what conventional probability should be telling us.
Absolutely.
In Ocean Away, another team of digital detectives say they too have identified crooked bettors wagering on war.
This might be the most insane pattern we have found on Polymarket so far.
Based in Paris, Nicholas Weiman's small data analytics firm Bubble Maps creates visualizations of bets on Polymarket to spot bubbles or clusters of suspect traders. One paradox of Polymarket: everything about the trades is totally transparent and public, except the traders themselves remain anonymous.
This big cluster in the middle, no one talked about it.
The firm's head of investigations goes by his online handle, Deebs. He asked us to obscure his identity over fears of retaliation for his detective work. They shared for the first time what they believe is a more egregious insider trading case than Gannon Ken Van Dyke's.
We spotted 9 Polymarket accounts, all connected, who made collectively $2.4 million, betting almost exclusively on U.S. military operations. Van Dyke made $400,000, here $2.4 million. And now here's the crazy part: 98% win rate.
Wait.
98%.
This is like winning the lottery multiple times, you know?
The linked accounts made dozens of winning bets on the specific dates of pivotal moments in the war with Iran, even when the odds were low. The first U.S. strikes, the removal of Iran's supreme leader, the announcement of a ceasefire. How do we know this isn't just someone who has really good instincts?
Luck alone cannot explain those numbers.
If you know this, why don't federal prosecutors?
Well, hopefully with your interview, they're going to know this.
We talked to one source in the Defense Department with relation to Sergeant Van Dyke, and he said, listen, there are dozens more of these. Van Dyke was just a small fish.
For sure.
There's so many people involved in the planning and the execution of a military operation.
A former U.S. military officer, Deebs, speaks from firsthand experience when he says military bets are ripe for corruption.
You have, obviously, the government officials, but you also have the military planners, right? You have the military intelligence analysts, and even spouses. They hear things, and that means that there consequently are a lot of potential insiders.
And it's not just the voguish, high-tech online prediction markets where trades based on war have raised intense suspicions. It's happening on the old-school and heavily regulated commodities markets, too.
I'm highly suspicious at this point. And I'm not the only one. Any trader right now is highly suspicious.
A former commodities trader, David Covell, is now a New York lawyer representing victims of fraud on the same markets he once traded. In 2021, he secured the largest whistleblower award for commodities market manipulation in U.S. history.
Well, this is a classic graph that any commodities trader will understand.
Covell walked us through the morning of March 23rd. fighting had been raging for 3+ weeks, and it was a slow trading day in oil futures.
If you see the chart, you'll see that no one is trading during that time period. Why would you trade at that time? It doesn't make a lot of sense unless you have a real reason.
Then, according to data the financial firm LSEG provided us, suddenly at 6:50 a.m., more than $800 million was staked on the chance of oil prices dropping. 15 minutes later, President Trump posted on Truth Social that the White House and Iran had, quote, very good and productive conversations about ending hostilities. The news sent the price of oil plummeting more than 10%.
What kind of profit is that resulting in?
We're talking tens of millions, could be $80 million.
You see this graph and you think insider trading.
That's a natural conclusion to draw. I can't know it without knowing what happened, but it's a natural conclusion to draw.
Covell is not alone in finding this highly dubious. 60 Minutes has learned federal investigators are probing these oil market trades as well.
What are the odds the government knows the identity of whoever executed that?
If they go to the exchanges, they can know them.
This could have been someone inside the U.S., this could have been someone from a foreign country, this could have been an enemy.
Identifying who it was would be the secret to figuring out whether it was insider trading or not.
It's not just markets that risk manipulation by war bets. It's truth as well. Emmanuel Fabian, a military correspondent for the Times of Israel, thought little of a piece he wrote in March about an Iranian missile strike in an empty forest near Jerusalem. But soon after he published the account, Fabian received a barrage of messages asking him to change his story. He ignored most, but they turned darker.
One of them was, you're going to make us lose $900,000, and we'll invest even more than that to finish you, is what he wrote. He also wrote details about my siblings as well. He said, I know how often you visit your family.
What's your fear factor at this point?
I was quite worried.
He investigated and found war bets on Polymarket hinging on whether an Iranian missile would enter Israel, specifically on March 10th. And Fabian's small news story voided the side of the bets predicting no missile, angering the losers.
There was at $14 million that were being wagered there.
$14 million?
Yeah, but by the time it closed, it actually went up to $22 million, if I'm not mistaken. Also, the person who wrote them, they wrote that, if you abide by my instructions and change it, then you can end with money in your pocket and this will all be over.
Despite this pressure campaign against you that escalated to death threats, you did not go in and change your copy. Do you worry that other people might not have your principled stance?
I do worry. We know when there's a lot of money involved, in this case $22 million, I think that can cause people to lie.
Fabian reported the threats to the police and to Polymarket, which said that threatening a journalist was unacceptable and banned the accounts involved. Polymarket has said they work proactively on any suspicious activity constantly behind the scenes. Overseeing all this, playing sheriff in this new Wild West? In the U.S., it's that niche government agency, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, the CFTC, set up in the 70s to regulate food prices. Historically led by a commission of 5, today it's run by one person, Michael Selig, a 36-year-old whom President Trump nominated chairman last fall.
We will hold whoever's engaging in fraudulent, manipulative, or insider trading activity accountable to the American people.
But enforcement actions have dropped by more than 2/3 since 2024. Staffing has dropped sharply too. Selig declined our interview request, though the CFTC told us it is hiring more staff and using AI to go after bad actors. And government officials are aware of the new potential for corruption. In March, the White House issued a memo to staffers noting it is a criminal offense for anyone to use non-public information on prediction markets.
Where do you draw the line? I guess reasonable people can debate where the line is.
Source after source told us they fear today's insider trading scandal is tomorrow's national security scandal. If market watchers can spot irregular trades, surely enemies can too, and they'll make their war plans accordingly.
Just to put it plainly, this could be putting people's lives at risk. Other adversaries may be using this information in order to plan their own strategy.
If you're taking a futures position, a year from now, Sergeant Van Dyke is the only person charged with insider trading?
No, I think it's just going to multiply from here.
On ancient roads and in medieval alleyways in London, a very modern battle is brewing. Black cabs, which are as synonymous with that city as Buckingham Palace, will soon be competing with artificial intelligence-powered autonomous taxis. Tech companies promise these AI inventions, some of which are already operating in several American cities, are safer and smarter than human drivers. But as we found out, London's cabbies aren't about to hand over their keys. After all, just to get a license, they've already proven their own kind of intelligence, studying, often for years, to pass a 161-year-old test called the knowledge. There's nothing artificial about it. They just have to memorize 25,000 streets and thousands of landmarks and businesses and know the shortest routes between them all.
Look, we're the oldest form of transport in the world. Fact, we come before buses and trains and stuff. Yeah, we are the icons of London. If we do a left here, you'll have the Goldsmiths Hall.
Tom Scullion has been driving one of London's famous black cabs for the past 34 years.
What's the weirdest request you've gotten from a passenger?
What, this week? Or you wouldn't believe. There's a guy, it's a regular ride, and he's got an Irish wolfhound dog. Gives you a bit of paper where the dog lives. Dog jumps in the bag. One of the best customers I've got. Never says a word, never complains about the ride. But we get people hailing us down in the morning, take my kid to school. Never seen me before in their life, probably never see me again. That's the trust we get.
The trust and confidence in cabbies here dates back to 1865, when the knowledge exam was first introduced to London's horse-drawn cabmen.
Do you have riders testing your knowledge?
Every ride. Which way you going, mate? And Google says this and Google says that. You're never going to beat the knowledge.
Your knowledge is better than what a Google map will tell you to go.
Oh, don't make me laugh. Seriously, you know, it's like comparing a hot dog vendor to a Gordon Ramsay.
At the Transport for London office, nervous, aspiring cabbies dress up in their Sunday best to take a series of oral exams known as appearances.
Whenever you're ready, sir, we'll go from Soho House, 40 Greek Street, to the Chancery Rosewood, please.
Candidates are quizzed on how to get between two random points.
Live on left Greek Street, right Shaftesbury Avenue, left Great Windmill Street, forward Haymarket.
As examiners measure the distance, ensuring they're calling the shortest route.
Unfortunately, sir, I can't score you today.
He failed this round, but for those who do pass the knowledge, this memorization has proven to be so challenging, it can change the structure of their brains. A study from University College London found cab drivers' posterior hippocampi, the part of the brain linked to memory, got bigger throughout their careers.
Everyone in their profession has had to train themselves with knowledge to be the best what they are. And that's what we're doing.
Stephen Fairbrass has been trying to pass the knowledge for 8 years. Anshu Morjani for 5. They showed us the official study guide known as the Blue Book.
These are like the points of interest that any paying customer would want you to take them to.
I mean, there's
thousands
of them.
Yeah, 6,000 of them.
I just have to look at this. The Last Judgment PH, the Law Society Hall, the Londoner Hotel, the Marquis, the Mon Library, the National Gallery. I mean, this is crazy that you have to know all this. You have to learn individual restaurants.
Individual restaurants. Public houses.
What if a restaurant goes out of business?
Then he changes names and then you learn a new name.
Then it comes on the list. It comes on the list.
Yeah, it goes on the list.
Now their knowledge is being tested like never before. Autonomous vehicles haven't been approved to pick up passengers in London yet, but several companies are already trying out their cars here. Wave, a British startup backed by NVIDIA and Microsoft, hopes to be operational later this year, as does Waymo, which is owned by Google's parent company, Alphabet. Takidra Mawakana is Waymo's co-CEO. She says putting more of its robotaxis on the roads can save lives by reducing the 1 million traffic deaths worldwide each year. You believe driverless cars are safer than a human-driven vehicle?
In the case of Waymo, we actually have the data that shows us that we're 5 times safer than a human driver.
Waymo has already made significant inroads in the U.S. It first began offering rides to customers in a Phoenix suburb in 2020. Now, millions of riders across 11 major U.S. cities are being driven by Waymos each month.
Humans want to get in the car, send that last email they didn't get to send, and check on the kid that's screaming. But we're trying to drive and do that. So this really gives you the chance to take care of all of those things and then let the Waymo driver safely get you from point A to point B.
You call it a Waymo driver, but there's no driver.
We really think it's important to think of it as there is a driver, right? This driver is the most experienced driver in the world. We travel over 2 million miles a week. So humans drive about 700,000 miles in a lifetime. So this is almost 3 lifetimes per week that our fleet is driving.
Because it's been trained on every other ride that Waymo's given?
At the whole fleet, yes.
Waymo's AI has also driven billions of miles in simulation to train for the countless rare scenarios it might face on roads, like snow on the Golden Gate Bridge or even an elephant stopping traffic.
Start ride whenever you're ready.
In San Francisco, we took a trip in one of its robotaxis with product manager Chris Ludwig.
Happy Friday.
It's a little freaky not to have a driver. I hear this all the time, but like I'm watching the wheel very, very carefully.
Yep.
But after a few minutes, the ride felt strangely normal.
Feels like a very careful driver.
Yeah. Our goal is kind of blissfully boring.
The car is outfitted with 29 cameras, 6 radars, 5 microphones, and 5 LiDAR sensors, which continuously pulse to measure distances, objects, and people as far as 3 football fields away. Inside, a screen shows riders what the car is seeing.
It sees an intersection, I don't know, 300 feet away, but because there's other cars, I can't see it, but it sees around these other cars.
That's right, and that's partly the design of the placement of the sensors makes it superhuman compared to what a human would be able to do.
Waymo says the data gathered from these sensors enables the AI to respond faster than a human. We saw that when a woman talking on her phone crossed right in front of us.
It's kind of crazy to see a person change their mind and how quickly the Waymo responded to like a slight motion of them moving forward.
Exactly, the system has learned to react to those subtle cues because that's what's necessary.
Waymo's AI may have a lot of training, but it still makes some rookie mistakes.
Oh my God, what the f is that Waymo doing?
In Los Angeles, a Waymo drove through an active police scene.
Waymo, come on!
There's also been incidents of the robo-taxis getting in the way of emergency responders and illegally passing stopped school buses, leading to a software recall and a federal investigation. Back in London, Waymo's robo-taxis have been driving the streets to build a detailed 3D map to train its AI, a company standard before operating in a new area. But it does have competition.
We want to make sure our AI can understand every concept it might encounter.
Alex Kendall is Wave's CEO. Unlike Waymo's, his artificial intelligence doesn't map out a city before driving in it. How is it possible you don't need to map a city entirely before getting your vehicles to drive autonomously in it?
Well, think about how you and I learned how to drive. I learned how to go through a few traffic lights, and that taught me how the concept of traffic lights works. In a similar way, that's how our AI learns. We train it on millions of hours of experience driving all around the world. So this means when it goes somewhere it's never seen before or it's never been mapped, it can understand what's in front of it and make decisions in real time.
Wave's robo-taxis are still in testing and not yet available to the public.
The products that we're building will use inbuilt sensors.
But Kendall believes his AI will be able to more easily adapt to new environments.
Let's go for a drive.
Okay. He took us to Westminster, a district in London that's home to some of the city's most historic landmarks, to show us where he's been training his fleet since Wave's early days in 2019.
And your foot is not,
I'm not touching the controls. The AI is controlling the steering, the speed, the indicators, the brake.
Until robo-taxis are approved by the government here, a human has to sit in the driver's seat for safety.
Here's one of the busier roundabouts in front of Westminster, right in front of Parliament. Lots of tourists around, different vehicles.
This guy just crossed into our lane.
Now back to another lane.
Right.
There's a bike that we have to wait for before making the lane change. It's just such a long list of things that can happen on the road. I think that's the main advantage of an AI driver here, is that it can have the intelligence to deal with things that you may never expect on the roads.
I'll go lead by Palmer East, left into Marlborough Road.
Aspiring cabbie Stephen Fairbrass didn't seem too concerned about that.
Do you worry about the future of this? You know, autonomous vehicles driving around?
No.
Why don't you worry?
To me, the human brain will always be the strongest tool. Can you imagine you're trying to hull down a vehicle with no driver in it? You're standing there in the rain, trying to get home, and that vehicle just drives straight past you because it hasn't got a sensor or a human brain or an eye to turn. So to me, human beings, drivers, always going to be needed. Always.
Anshu Moorjani, however, didn't seem so sure.
Every profession is being affected by AI. I don't know what it's going to do in near future, but it's always there on your mind that yes, and you're getting into a career not knowing what
the future is.
Over the last decade, London's black cab industry has seen a steep decline. The number of drivers has fallen from 25,000 to 16,000 today. So has their income, as Uber and other ride-hailing companies have been cutting into their business.
Mr. Fairbrass.
Even so, hundreds still sign up for the knowledge each year.
Okay, sir. Hello, sir.
This was Stephen Fairbrass's 20th attempt.
We're going to go to the Riding House Cafe, please.
Riding House Cafe, sir, is on Great Titchfield Street, sir.
Okay, sir.
Go right into Mortimer Street, right into Nausea Street, left into Riding House Street, left into Portland Place. Great Titchfield Street, set down the right.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, sir. I can't remember that other name of the after Portland Place.
All right, calm down. Okay, deep breaths. Yeah.
Fairbrass failed this round and will have to try again. For Anshu Moorjani, this was his 41st try.
Run me down to Ladywell Station, please.
Leave by Brockley Road, left Adelaide Avenue, comply roundabout, leave by Ladywell Road, right Railway Terrace, sit down left.
Today, I'm going to score you, okay?
Oh, thank you, sir.
He passed.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Mr. Very well done. Thank you.
And just this week, after 5 years of trying, Moorjani finally completed the knowledge and will now earn his license.
There's probably some people going to be watching who think, you know, why spend years of your life studying for this exam when you could be Uber drivers much faster?
Do you want to drive around in one of them famous cabs out there?
Hundreds of years of history.
It means a lot to people of London. It's like London without the Queen, I'd say.
You can't have a London without a king or queen. You can't have London without a black cab.
No.
Correct.
Impossible.
Celebrating 20 years of Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes.
It's a privilege. It's incredible. It's been the honor of a life.
Go to 60minutesovertime.com.
Christopher Nolan is among the great Hollywood directors of his generation. His blockbusters have won 18 Academy Awards and hauled in more than $6 billion. Next, Nolan will release this summer his adaptation of the nearly 3,000-year-old story, The Odyssey. We met the 55-year-old British American in his office in L.A., where he wrote epics including Oppenheimer, Dunkirk, Inception, Interstellar, and The Dark Knight. A Nolan movie is a spectacle, big and loud at the limits of what's possible. But a Nolan story is grace, imperfect people revealing what it is to be human. The Odyssey is Nolan's most ambitious yet. It had to be, he told us, because he imagines every film is the last he will ever make.
I feel a real responsibility to try and get as much on screen for the audience as possible, to give the audience the fullest flavor, the fullest set of images and events that we can give them for a given story.
What are the essential elements of a Christopher Nolan film?
I always try to have point of view on the story that's from inside the film. So I'm not looking at the characters from 30,000 feet. I'm trying to be in the race, in the maze with them. Because I want to try and give the audience a sense of what a place would smell like, what it would feel like. But you're also trying to make the most involving, the most extreme version of a story possible.
Nolan's Odyssey is an extreme version of the Bronze Age war fought by the soldier king Odysseus. With his Trojan horse deception and 10-year struggle to return home. The Odyssey is Nolan's 13th film in 28 years, and unlike many directors, he writes the screenplays.
When I'm writing, I'm visualizing the film as an audience member, as somebody experiencing the story. Then when I direct the story, I'm trying to take the audience there. So in the case of the Odyssey, I'm trying to put the audience into that horse. I'm trying to put them on the deck of Odysseus' ship.
You don't want the audience to watch the film. You want the audience to be in the film.
Very much, yeah. I have a feeling of having connected with these characters, having lived in the world with these characters.
Action! We're sitting next to your desk.
Yep.
And I couldn't help but notice there's a book right next to me called How to Make Good Movies. So this is it. This is the secret.
That's the secret, yeah. I tried to tidy up before you came and hide all my secrets, but...
It looks like it was written in the 1950s, and there's a guy with a Super 8 camera.
Very much about Super 8, yeah, Super 8 home movies. And I'm actually old enough to have started on Super 8. My family had a Super 8 camera instead of a video camera.
My earliest memories literally are of Chris making movies.
Nolan's younger brother, Jonathan, is a Hollywood director who told us that Chris was handed the family 8mm camera to keep him busy.
Our take on Star Wars, of course, in the basement, blowing up some of my toys with firecrackers. Probably 8 or 9 years old at that point. I would have been 3 or 4.
What was it that fascinated him about the camera?
I think he's just always been captivated by the idea that you could take this device and use it as a portal into another universe. It was like a door.
Another universe, but a door that at first Chris Nolan had to batter through, like the astronaut in Interstellar. As a young man, you graduated with a degree in literature. You applied to film school, and they turned you down.
How do you know that?
Research. You know about research.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
What did the film school tell you?
Nothing. You just get a letter saying no thanks.
Well, I want to be a writer anyway.
Despite no thanks, he kept shooting films on weekends with friends. Then, in 1999, a turning point. He made Memento.
I don't remember.
It's a complex mystery with an amnesiac investigator who remembers clues through tattoos. This was an early reveal of Nolan's trademark, an intricate plot of shifting timelines that challenges the audience to keep up. But movie executives feared it was confusing.
Something doesn't feel right.
No one wanted to distribute Memento.
Yeah, we don't have to say it quite like it's quite so sternly. I mean, it had
the story has a happy ending.
But the story does have a happy ending, and no, it was a lesson in humility. It was a lesson in patience of independent filmmaking, which is, you finish a film and you really feel you've achieved something, but convincing the industry of that, the distributors of that, it can take a long time.
It took a year to find someone to distribute Memento. But audiences found Amnesia unforgettable, and the so-called confusing screenplay was nominated for an Oscar.
Every no that he got just confirmed for him even more that he wanted to do this.
Emma Thomas met Nolan first day of college. She's produced all of his films and their 4 children. They've been married 26 years.
I cannot imagine Chris if he wasn't making films. And outside of, family, which is probably the most important thing to him. No, genuinely, the most important thing to him. It's horrifying to think how frustrated he would be if he wasn't able to tell stories via the medium of film.
A medium he prefers extra large. He collapsed an actual building in the dark night. Nolan uses computer animation, but not if the authentic is humanly possible. In the film Tenet, he bought a 747 and built a hangar to crash it into. In 2024, he blew up the Academy Awards. Oppenheimer won 7 Oscars, including Nolan's first for Best Director and Best Picture. Seems to me you make movies the hard way, and the harder the better as far as you're concerned.
The harder the better, right to the point of the Odyssey, and I think we pushed pretty hard on this one and maybe found some limits.
Let's go! Nolan's Odyssey brought Matt Damon and thousands of cast and crew to Greece, Iceland, Morocco, Italy, and Scotland. He shot 2 million feet of IMAX film. Unbelievable. What do you think when you see that? You've seen it 100 times.
I've seen it 1,000 times. I mean, I think it's a lot of work by a lot of people.
I have the sense that you don't think of yourself as the most important person on the set.
I think of myself as the representative of the audience on set. That's my North Star. That's how I have to be looking at the film. So in a sense, I am the most important person on the set because I'm the audience. In taking on the Odyssey, it does become about scale. It needed to be the biggest film that we had done. It needed to be challenging to all of us because that's the nature of the story.
Looks like you nearly drowned Matt Damon.
We certainly put him through his paces.
I mean, it was the hardest movie I've ever done, by far. I mean, not even close.
This is Damon's 3rd Nolan film after Interstellar and Oppenheimer.
The first meeting I had with him, at the end of the meeting, he said, this movie's gonna be hard. I kind of looked at him like, I've made, I don't know, 100 movies or whatever. I looked at him like, yeah, I know. And he looked at me and went, no, this movie's gonna be really hard.
Nolan often returns to his stars, including Cillian Murphy in the Batman films, Dunkirk, and Oppenheimer.
He really understands what actors do and what is required of them to do it.
He's an actor's director?
As far as I'm concerned, yeah. People might not think of him that way because the canvas he paints on is so big, but look at the performances in his movies.
Particularly in the case of actors, you're handing them a script and you're saying, okay, you go away and you become an expert on that character's perspective on the story. So then when I'm on set, they're informing me. You know, they're bringing me information about how that character would see things, how that character plays. So in a way, it's the opposite of what people think it is.
I think what separates him from other directors is the stories he wants to tell are incredibly ambitious, and the way he wants to tell them is incredibly ambitious. In this case, he wanted to do it 100% in IMAX, which had never been done.
IMAX is Nolan's great ambition.
It's really a wonderful way to retain the original image.
The Odyssey is the first feature shot completely on the giant film format. When Nolan was 16, he saw an IMAX documentary at a museum and was spellbound by the 5-story screen. But IMAX is expensive and cumbersome. Digital photography and editing are faster and cheaper, so almost no one does this anymore. Look at the splicing machine.
Yeah.
It looks like it was made in the 1940s.
Probably was.
We watch the Odyssey being cut and glued together in the last film lab of its kind in the world. Why keep this ancient art alive? Well, the 70mm IMAX frame has resolution or image quality up to 3 times higher than digital. Art the hard way.
There it is.
Oh, nice. Very clean. Hollywood could say IMAX isn't practical, screenplays shouldn't challenge the audience, and computers are cheaper than a 747. But the people we call artists are inspired by dreams, like a 7-year-old with a Super 8. How would you like Hollywood historians to describe your career?
Long. I'd love to feel that I had added something to the body of work of all the filmmakers I have admired and that great film history that's developing. If I can play some part in moving the language of it forward somehow, that would be a great thing to be remembered for.
The last minute of 60 Minutes is sponsored by United Healthcare. Coverage you can count on for your whole life ahead.
Mark Twain, Richard Pryor, Lucille Ball, and Lenny Bruce all used comedy as a mirror to hold up to the nation. As Nate Bargatze sees it, the reflection helped shape America.
In a country like ours that is the most big, it's comedy that brings us together through jokes about the experiences we all share. There is almost nothing that the Andy Griffith Show, the Jeffersons, Saturday Night Live, or Seinfeld have in common, other than the premise that a laugh can be found almost anywhere in this country on nearly any topic. When done right, American comedy shines light into dark places in a digestible way. For example, Blazing Saddles and All in the Family confronted bigotry by ridiculing prejudice. Walls were broken down in the process. Few things have that kind of power in America. I've always loved stand-up comedy and encourage young artists to give it a try because I truly believe its authenticity will stand the test of time. And everyone knows that AI is not that funny.
I'm Bill Whitaker. Tonight marks the end of the 58th season of 60 Minutes. We're already at work on stories for season 59, which starts in September. Between now and then, we'll bring you some of our favorite segments. See you next week.